What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here to talk to you about The Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman. I went into this movie with almost no expectations at all because it was on the same DVD as The Screaming Skull, which I really hated. And I actually really enjoyed this movie. I won't say that it's a good film. There are times where I was very confused by what was going on, but because it was attached in my mind to this other movie that had no redeeming qualities at all, I went into it thinking there would be no redeeming qualities to this movie. And I am not sure if this hadn't been attached to The Screaming Skull on this DVD, if I just saw The Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman on TV and didn't already have this other awful movie in my mind telling me that this movie would be bad, I'm not sure what I would have thought of it. But going into it thinking, okay, this is going to be as bad as The Screaming Skull, and then being told, no, there's actually some interesting stuff going on in this movie, helped me enjoy this movie a lot more. I think the basic plot, and I say I think because at times it's a little confusing what's going on here, but at the very beginning there are these two guys doing an autopsy on a man who was allegedly a werewolf, and he had some kind of pentagram scar on his chest, and the doctor, he pulls the silver bullets out of the guy and says if he's really a werewolf, when we pull the silver bullets out, he will come back to life. And then the guy comes back to life, he becomes a werewolf, and then he kills these two. And then we cut over to these two women, I think they're in grad school. They are doing an assignment on an ancient witch somewhere, and one of them has a boyfriend and that will become important later, but right now he's basically just there to say, hey, how's your assignment going? And then they go out into the middle of nowhere, and they are looking for this town where the witch was buried, but they're having trouble finding the town. They're running low on gas, and then they meet the guy from the beginning of the movie, the werewolf, and then he says he will help them, and we find out there is some kind of prophecy or something where his werewolfism can only be removed by a woman who loves him, by stabbing him with silver or something. It's a little vague, and the way the movie presents it is sometimes characters will just be walking, and then one of them will just say, there's a prophecy, I need to be stabbed by a woman I love, and like it comes so matter-of-factly and kind of comes out of nowhere that by the time this very important dialogue is delivered, it's already over, and then I'm having trouble processing what was just said. And there's also so many other weird things that happen in this movie that I'm having trouble processing that in relation to everything else that's happening. And so you've got these two women, Genevieve, and I don't remember the other one's name. Hold on. Genevieve and... oh, okay, it's not going to say their names. Okay, cool. Genevieve and, I don't know, Eunice. I don't know. And one of them, Genevieve, she is scared of this guy. She doesn't trust him. She says, let's go anywhere else, even though we're running low on gas, we don't want to be here. And then the other one, whose name is not Eunice, she says, no, everything's fine, let's just sleep here, it's fine. And then we find out that this werewolf guy has a sister who is mentally disturbed, and she tries to attack Genevieve at one point, and then the werewolf guy, like, is hovering over Genevieve after the sister attacked her, and she, like, wakes up, and he's, like, 3 inches from her face, and she just kind of smiles, and it's really weird because, like, seconds ago in this movie, she was talking about how she didn't trust this guy, and she wants to get out of here, and then when he says, look, I'm sorry, my sister just attacked you, it won't happen again, please forgive her, I'm very sorry, and she's just like, oh, it's okay, and I'm thinking, like, this would, like, have her screaming if she was really genuinely didn't like this guy and didn't trust him, and she wakes up and he's, like, an inch from her face, but apparently he does have a sister, and then she knows something, because at one point, the other one, the one whose name is not Eunice, she finds a dungeon at their property with chains and blood on the wall, and then the sister attacks her, and then he tells her later, he says, you have got to stop attacking these women, they are here to help me, and I'm here to help them, and she says, they found the dungeon, they know too much, or they know everything, or something like that, and I'm confused because I don't think they know anything, I don't know anything, so I'm not really sure what the sister thinks they know, but anyway, then the werewolf, he takes them to the grave of the witch, they open up the grave, and then they accidentally get a little bit of blood on the witch's mouth, the skeleton, and then that is what revives her. I keep saying she's a witch, they call her a witch, but also she's a vampire. I'm pretty sure they call call her a witch. Now I'm not sure. I'm second-guessing myself, but that's where the title Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman comes in, even though there's really actually like 4 vampire women in this movie, depending on what you count. But then these a couple of them accidentally reawaken this countess who was a vampire a long time ago, and then she turns the one who is not Eunice into a vampire. And then at one point, not Eunice tries to turn Genevieve into a vampire. And then Werewolf comes in with a cross, not Eunice runs away, and then he's telling her, like, okay, you know, everything's fine. And then the next thing we know, at one point, the werewolf has sent Genevieve somewhere. I don't remember where he sends her, but then he is digging a grave, and he buries somebody. And I thought, oh, okay, he just killed not Eunice off screen, and now he's burying her. But then later, we see not Eunice again, and I think what happened, the werewolf is burying his sister. And at that point, I don't know if I missed something. I'm not sure if not Eunice turned the sister into a vampire off screen and we didn't see that, and we didn't see him killing her either, but he's just burying his sister for some reason. But then throughout the rest of the movie, not a whole lot happens, but this ancient vampire, she's wanting to turn Genevieve into a vampire for some reason. I really have no idea why. Meanwhile, the werewolf, he wants Genevieve to turn him into a not werewolf, and these two fall in love in between scenes. I really don't know how that happened or why, but then Genevieve's boyfriend comes in, and suddenly he flashes a badge, and he is an inspector of some kind, and he has come to take Genevieve back with him, and the werewolf says, hey, I'm sorry, we didn't mean to fall in love, and the inspector says, well, there's a lot of murders that have been going on around here, so if you really loved her, you'd let her come with me. And then they leave, and then there's this guy who attacks the werewolf, and he says, you killed my wife and baby. And we have no idea who this guy is. We've never seen him before. The werewolf guy did confess to Genevieve that when he was a werewolf, he did kill some people, but I don't know who this guy is. I don't know where he came from out of nowhere. And then the werewolf ends up killing him. And then the vampires, they kidnap the inspector and Genevieve. It's a whole weird thing. There is a lot of just really odd story choices here. But the filmmaking here, I feel like, is a lot, let's be honest, it's a lot more exploitive than The Screaming Skull. In the 1950s, you could do this, and that would be considered too much flesh. So they weren't really going to be able to get away with doing hardly anything in the 50s, but in the 70s, they're able to do a lot more risque stuff. At one point, we see somebody put a chalice up to someone's neck, and they pierce the neck, and it is just gushing blood. And it's not really scary, but it's like, oh, hey, this is a nice change of pace from the 1950s where absolutely nothing can happen. And the werewolf, I mean, it looks pretty cheesy, but that's okay. I can't imagine that they had a very big budget on this. Oh, I forgot to mention the truck driver who tries to kidnap Genevieve at one point because he gave her a ride somewhere, and then he decides that he's madly in love with her, and then the werewolf kills the truck driver. Forgot to mention that, totally. But at one point, Genevieve, she finds a dead body on, like, draped over the gate of the house, and then, like, it keeps cutting back to, like, a close-up on these women's eyes, like, you know, this close, like, just right up on a woman's eyes. It just keeps doing these quick flashes of a woman's eyes while Genevieve is, like, freaking out because she found a dead body, and it's really creepy, and that's probably the scariest thing that I've seen this month. And so, while this movie is really silly in places and doesn't make a lot of sense in most places, I enjoyed this movie. I actually had a good time watching it. The more I watch it and the more I'm able to figure out what's going on, it might be less enjoyable to me, but at least on the first viewing, I highly enjoyed The Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman. So those are my thoughts on that. I hope you guys like this video, and I will see you guys in the future with some more videos. In the meantime, have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.